I am so thankful that for the most part that I have my voice back to film this video because yesterday I did not have it and I'm like, I'm so excited for this first impression video. Like, come on voice, I need you to come in clutch today. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here. So excited that I'm here. I'm very sorry that the 25 days of shoujo manga sort of just went in chaos here near the end. Gonna do my best to finish strong even if I can't post every day, and hopefully I will actually be able to read 25 manga volumes because yeah, I'm not there. As of filming this video, as of today, I have read 11 volumes of manga this month, which is my smallest month of reading, though that's not necessarily intentionally. It just happened to be because this month has just been full of sickness and stuff, but we are going to talk about some happy manga that I really enjoyed reading that I'm so excited to share with you. One of them is a one-shot, and then of course, as I shared this past Monday of the unboxing of Love That's Understatement Blade Girl, you guys know I had to do a first impression on these manga and just so excited for that opportunity today. So the manga, the three, well I've already mentioned the two that I'm going to mention, but the other one I'm going to be talking about is, hopefully I can say this, is Hoteri Hotette First Kiss. This is a one-shot manga by the same creator as Fall in Love You False Angels, which I did talk about in my most anticipated license announcements from this year, and manga that I'm really excited to be picking up that's like debuting already. There's definitely a lot of manga I want to get next year that's not debuting that I've already been collecting. But yeah, I was able to read this one, and then as I already shared, I read Blade Girl, or I'll be reviewing Blade Girl, and Love That's an Understatement. I'm going to be reviewing them or sharing first impressions. No spoilers, hopefully. I do my best not to. Then I'm going to be sharing the order that I read it. So the first one that was First Kiss. I don't know what this term means in Japanese. I meant to Google it and I forgot to. But this is a short collection, or a collection of 4 different stories, and they all center around the theme, I guess you would say, of each couple is having their first kiss. And this was so very cute. I really enjoyed each of the stories in this, and I was very impressed of how I did really enjoy this. There was only one that I struggled with, and that was the very first one, which was called Special Occasions. I really loved this short story, which is about a kohai who has feelings for her senpai, but sort of like denies it, hides it a little bit, like, no, I can never love you, no, I don't like you. And they're in the calligraphy club, and she has been trying to work on her calligraphy to enter into this, I think it's like a competition of sorts, and she feels that she's struggling, and she feels like if she can just see her senpai draw or do calligraphy, that maybe her own skills will grow. But he has sort of this rule that he doesn't do it in front of people except for special occasions. That's sort of how the theme, or what that first story is about, and I love the senpai kohai relationship. I really loved the female lead. I loved how playful the male lead was. So I loved all of that. The only thing I feel like slightly took away my enjoyment of that story was that I didn't quite, because I'm not familiar with calligraphy and the work that goes into it and appreciating the beauty of it because of that said work, I felt like I was not able to form quite as deep a connection with their romance because I didn't understand how her looking at her senpai's calligraphy before she even knew him and feel inspired and that draw her to her senpai in a romantic way. Now I told myself that this could be used in another example that I could relate more easier with, in the sense of, like, you know, if you're in high school or even now and you see your senpai's work of something and it inspires you, it touches you, say with just painting, because I feel a little more familiar with that, can be a springboard, so to speak, for romantic feelings to start blooming. And even though I told myself that, I still really struggled, but the romance itself was very, very cute. I loved how the title came into play, and honestly with all 4 of these stories, I loved how the play on words with the title really reflected that story very well. That was very, very fun. And I do want to pause and say, outside of the first kisses that each of short stories had, I really loved how bold all of these female leads were. I felt like that was another running theme where each of them take action to express their feelings to the guy they liked. And I admired that so much, because even if I'm not in high school anymore, no way would I have had that kind of courage or bravery in high school to ever confess my feelings. So I did appreciate how each of these girls were gutsy in their own kind of way. Now, the second story was Miyabi and Miyabi, I think is the name of that one. Yes, I love that one. That was honestly my favorite one. It had some delinquent slash playboy vibes with the girl who's very strict and very studious and sort of has a bad reputation of being very cold-hearted. You know, then you have the delinquent with his playboy vibes, and people are like, oh, he's a player, when he is a total sweetheart. I loved those vibes and that those tropes combined. Really loved seeing the female lead gradually soften as the story went on. How they had their first kiss was everything. I really, really loved it. And honestly, what sold me as it being my favorite. I mean, I already really loved it, and I definitely felt the two I'd read so far that was my favorite one, but I really enjoyed how at the end of each short story, there's like a little bonus page that has some kind of illustration, but in this one, it had a different kind of illustration, we'll say, and I loved how it talked about future children because of what was referenced. I'm going to say all of it, but because of that, it reminded me of how me and my husband, when we named our three kids, we gave them all the same initials. It just made me smile to see what this young man had, like the idea he had, and it just made my day. It just made my day. So I really felt like the second short story was already good. I already really loved it, but that bonus extra at the end of the chapter just bumped it up to an instant favorite. But it did make it hard because going into the third story, and sorry, I didn't even say what the second story was about, my bad, but we're going on to the third. I'm sorry, but the third story was Double Glasses, and this one is a very strong contender to also be my favorite of the collection. Is about a young woman. Actually, they're on the cover. It's about a young woman, though, who sees this guy here. She sees him blush one day because he's got that rumor, very cold-hearted, not very kind, but he works very hard, and she sees him blush, and that blush captivates her heart, and so she decides better to live with regrets than not do anything and not have any regrets at all. So she goes and confesses to him, and he says yes. And listen, I am not one to necessarily like pervy characters, but oh my goodness, the female lead in this was so hilarious. I loved her antics. I loved her little fantasies that she had. I loved her courage, and how I just love when it came to the hand holding. There was a very special kind of emphasis on that and how sweet and precious it was. And really just seeing these two have this mini relationship that was blooming, because I felt like we got to see what felt sort of over time, or at least that was the impression that I got. So we got to see their relationship bloom a little bit longer than the first two short stories, where I feel like they got together quicker, which I didn't mind that at all. I was completely fine with that. But I did think that Double Glasses story had a little something different and a little bit special compared to the first two short stories. I loved it though. I laughed so much, and that's why I say it's a contender for being my favorite, because of how much I laughed. And I really loved how that chapter ended. It was very, very good. And then the fourth chapter was called Full of Me, Full of You. I sort of feel like out of all of them, I loved all of them, but I sort of feel like this was my least favorite, even though I like the trope. I just didn't listen. Okay, when you have two people who like each other, two characters in this sense, they have gone to middle school together, or I think it was like junior high is what, Japan calls it, but they've gone to middle school together. The female lead has had a crush on this guy for a really long time, and he's even like, I hope that we'll be friends for a long time. They go to the same high school, but they're very grumpy and mean towards one another. But she ends up walking by his desk, and his, like, I forgot what it was called. It made me think of an agenda is what it made me think of, but like it falls out, and she sees a photo of herself in his like notebook thing. She's like, oh my gosh, I have one too. And so it's her exploring her feelings and wondering, should she take this friendship to another level? Should she confess her feelings? Because she's like, wonder if he feels the same way. And I just never knew, because of how they both act towards one another, that it's true. I would have never guessed that they had feelings for each other at all. But I did like how that trope was explored and how it came out to be this super cute ending that I really, really enjoyed. So again, I loved all of them, but I do think that was maybe the strongest for me in the sense of convincing me to get on board with a trope that's not necessarily my favorite. I don't know if it's a trope, but I just didn't like how grumpy they were to one another, because it wasn't really necessarily like an enemies to lovers. It wasn't that kind of vibe. I don't know what you would call it, but hopefully all of that makes sense. So I was really impressed that by the end, I found myself squealing and smiling and really, really loving how the direction unfolded. And again, that plays into the whole theme of, I feel like each short story having these really strong female leads who are willing to put their feelings out there, because that definitely played a very prominent role in that fourth story that I was just completely amazed and blown away by. And honestly, I was really impressed with all of these short stories of how, sometimes when you're reading a short story, you could feel like, man, I so want more. And yes, with all of these, I would love more. Definitely not saying I wouldn't. But I was really impressed that I felt happy and content with how these ended. I didn't feel like anything was missing. I felt like it had a solid ending for that story, but was also open-ended enough where I'm like, I can safely visualize their kind of happy ending going into the future. I really, really enjoyed that. And so I would definitely recommend this one-shot. I mean, it's a collection of short stories, so I guess it's not a one-shot, but I would really recommend this collection because it was very fun. And I appreciate that when I was starting, I think when I read this, I was starting to get sick again the second time. And so it was just enough for my brain to be able to read and not have to like worry of keeping up with plot points. I really appreciate that a lot. So very good. I'm excited to see how Fall in Love You Fall to Angels, how that series is going to be, because I do feel like reading this before that manga comes out has raised my expectations, which I know is not always a good thing, but I was just so impressed with this and had such a great time. And I really think if you're looking for just some short love stories to read, this is one you definitely should check out, especially if you're interested in this manga's work and want to get a feel of how her writing and her art style is, because they are both phenomenal. For the next title that I read, that was Blade Girl Volume 1. This has been a digital-only series. Trapped in Digital Jail by Kodansha. It is a 3-volume series. It is complete digitally in English, so if you're interested, like if you like check this out and you want to read more, which was definitely me, I was on that struggle bus of wanting to go see what happens next, then that opportunity is there. So right now we only have Volume 1. This is a josei manga about this young woman here. Her name is Ren, and we find out in the beginning that something has happened and she has lost her leg from the knee down, and she is really struggling to find the motivation to walk, because at the beginning, like, we see that she is now an amputee. We've been seeing that she's been walking with a cane for a long time, and she's just not finding that motivation to want to walk without this cane. And so her physical therapist is like, hey, why don't we go visit a friend of mine? They go to a stadium, and that is where she sees these people running on blades, full running, and she's so shocked because she's like, how could they be running? Like, I don't understand. And they're trying to like convince her, these other people, as well as like her father who was there, her physical therapist, are like, oh, you should maybe give it a shot, this could be an opportunity. And she sort of sneaks off, and she's not excited. She feels like her life is sort of over, and she ends up bumping into this man whose name is Kazami, and she sees him working on these different blades. They have this conversation. He's very rough around the edges, it feels like, and she's sort of giving her sob story, as he calls it. He's like, what, so your life's over? You're just gonna think about everything that you lost? What do you want me to say? And he's just not empathetic. Anyway, I've got more feelings on that. Honestly, that conversation was a turning point for her, because as he's walking away, she's like, wait, and she goes to run after him, and she feels the wind on her face, and she's like, oh my goodness, I felt the wind. Maybe there's something more here. Maybe I can run, and maybe I could find joy in my life again. And that is where this story starts off. Now, I want to say, when I first started this, when I first got it, honestly, I didn't read the blurb. I vaguely remembered what this is about, because I remember when it did release and how excited I was, because it is a shoujo or josei sports manga. And I was like, yes, but I never picked it up digitally, and I missed the window to request a review copy through NetGalley if it was on there at the time. And so I knew I wanted to pick this up, but I didn't know how I would feel otherwise. And I struggled at first when I started this, because I have read the seinen manga Run on Your New Legs. I love that manga. It's also about a young man who loses his, from the knee down, he lost his leg. I think it was in a car accident. It was through some kind of accident. And he is offered by somebody who works on prosthetics, and he offers to give him a blade, and he starts running. Very similar to how Ren's story is. And that is where I struggled originally, is I kept subconsciously comparing the two, which is so unfair to this manga. Like, I fully know that. And I kept telling myself, like, Laura, you need to stop. This is a different manga. And yes, these two series have a lot of similarities. But what I really loved about Blade Girl, that compared to Run Your New Legs, you really see Ren struggle. Not saying in Run Your New Legs you don't see our male lead struggle in that one, but this is a personal investment investment of emotions of seeing, can Ren continue to push herself forward? We see her having to train. We see that it wasn't just something she was easily able to pick up. And no pun intended with that, because she says at one time when she falls after she's running after that guy, she's like, falling is fun. And there's moments like that where you see that Ren, she may have not had any motivation for so many months, but it took one conversation, one moment for her to gather this courage, this strength and determination to say, I am going to do this. And that's exactly what this first volume is you're seeing her struggles. And I really loved how in this volume, we have these moments, I say when it's like half a page and you just see Ren's emotions. You can see the happiness that she has just shine on page. And that was not the same on Run Your New Legs. Yes, you can definitely feel the emotions, but look, she's like, my first step. And I feel like as a reader, we are invited into Ren's story to celebrate these small moments with her of where she is wanting to learn how to run with this blade, of how she has found this courage, because she mentions that she just feels like she can't be pretty anymore in this sense. She can't wear short mini skirts. She can't wear shorts. She can't wear high heels or other shoes that she really loved. And it's just been so hard for her to find, again, that motivation. And I also thought was really interesting too, that was not in Run Your New Legs, is there is a mention of Ren being bullied by other girls, them making comments of like, oh, well, she can't do it because she's missing a leg. Like, that's such a bogus thought. But anyway, Ren mentions how she has that struggle too. And so I feel like there was just much more of an emotional investment into Ren's story in seeing how she's going to overcome these new challenges, of how she's even going to address these challenges and want to have these challenges. Because there is one where Kazami gives her an assignment where she has to do jump rope on the blade. And she has to do 100 of them. And she really I feel like the creator really takes the time to see how she's doubting, how she's struggling. Is this how you are? Because she wants to run. And he's like, if you want to run, do this assignment. And she's like, how is this even going to help me with running? I don't get it. And has these doubts. She has these worries, but she sticks it out. And I just felt like the ending was so satisfying in the sense of seeing where she has come to where she is now. I felt like we really felt the time progression, that this wasn't something, again, that she learned very quickly. Yes, did it happen quickly of her being able to just adapt to the blade? Yes, I do think that's true, but it felt very realistic because it's like we're finally seeing Ren have that moment of, I want to do this. I want to be able to walk, to be able to run. And how that blade was not just about her running, because we see later moments on where she is like, I'm going to take a step. I'm going to take just a few steps. And it wasn't when she had the blade on, it was when she has her regular prosthetic on. And how that is changing her in every aspect of her life, not just in one part. It was very rewarding in that kind of sense. And I really, really enjoyed that. Now, when it came to that man, Kazami, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, this man right here, I had so much beef with him in the beginning, because when they have that conversation, him and Ren, it was just like he had no kind of empathy, no kind of compassion towards Ren's struggles. And I get that some people need that wake-up call, but that didn't mean I liked it. Now, did it help Ren? Obviously, yes, it did. He was very instrumental in her life, of her being where she is now, of how she can even smile like this. So I have my beef with them, okay? But I was impressed too that as the story goes on, we see him more as a character that's not a main character, but he's not a background character either. And seeing a project that he has, that he's working on, and how it is woven into Ren's life. Now, one thing I want to mention, I don't know if other people have heard about it, but I remember somebody saying they didn't like this first volume in the sense, now I didn't read reviews in advance, I just remember hearing this. There was some kind of inappropriate relationship between Ren, who's a teenager, and Kazami, who is an adult. I sort of had that at the back of my mind, and I think that is part of too my struggle of reading it or getting hooked originally, but there was nothing. There was nothing. I do feel like Ren does have this crush on Kazami, and I don't feel like there's anything inappropriate about how he's interacting with Ren. Like, I didn't see that, and I don't know if maybe something something happens in later volumes. I really don't know. But in this first volume, no, they really do have a relationship of, I guess, like player, student, and coach. There's no romance. So if you are looking for a josei sports series, I mean, again, out and about later, just in this first volume, there's no romance to be found. It doesn't even look like there's going to be a romance. The art was not my favorite. It was very good, but there were a few expressions, not on our female lead, but on some of the side characters that I just don't know, just didn't grip me quite the same as the other ones. Still very good, and I definitely feel like you get a very strong sense of movement. I did appreciate too, I feel like in Run Your New Legs had a little bit more of explanation about blades and gave different terminology than Blade Girl did. So I did find it easier to understand what everything is happening in the blades and what different blades do, if that makes sense. I feel like the story was more focused on like, yes, here's this information, we're going to present it to you, but we're not going to dwell on this for pages on end, and we just want you to be aware of it, and then we're going to get back to the emotional storytelling. So I definitely feel like this was another really good read. It ended on a huge cliffhanger, and I definitely would be interested in getting volume 2. Like I said, I was very tempted to go get digital volume 2, but I was like, I would like to wait and read it physically because this is something that I definitely could see myself coming back to, because I was just so touched by Ren's journey and her determination and how she just grew as an individual who was really struggling in the beginning to, again, smiling like this and finding this determination. It was very inspiring. So if you're looking for a short sports josei manga and you want something where you are invested emotionally, this series is definitely one I would give a try. And for the last manga that I read, and I will say was my favorite, I actually read it twice, is Love That's an Understatement. Oh my gosh, like let me pause. Let me first tell you what's about before I get in my rambles, because I know once I get going, I'm gonna get going. But this is about our main girl here. Her name is Risa. This is Zen. And Risa is a girl who seems so responsible and seems very put together. If something happens, she's always got something in her bag to help with that situation. A great example is the beginning when Risa's going home from school, or she's going to cram school. She sees Zen on the side of the road. He has just gotten beat up very severely. Rather than ignoring him like everybody else is as they walk by, she decides to give him an umbrella because it's raining at the time, gives him a towel, and also gives him a medical number to a local clinic so he can go get looked at because his eye was really beaten up, and he was just really beaten up. And she doesn't think much about it. She was just helping a bystander who was in trouble. But what do you know? Zen comes and finds her at a local fast food joint, and he wants to get to know her some more, and he just seems to keep popping up in her life. She sort of gets wound up into a little bit of trouble because Zen is part of, I wouldn't say a gang per se, but there is a gang that does confront Risa, and she's like, oh yeah, you're that gang that beat up Zen. Girls shouldn't have said that, because they're like, oh, well, we want to ask you some questions. How about you come with us? And you know that they mean bad news. Well, who should be there? Zen is there, and he helps save her. This may sound like Risa's a damsel in distress. I definitely don't think she is, but Zen just keeps popping up and saving her at these times where she just feels so alone, and that there's nobody there that's to help her, because she has this image, again, of being this responsible girl, that she doesn't need any help from anybody, that she's too smart for them. Zen's like, hey, you're a girl in need and I'm here. And he makes many references that are so funny of being perfect boyfriend material. Need a shoulder? He's 100% got a perfect boyfriend material shoulder. If you need a sleeve to cry on, all of that. And so begins their love story. And let me just say, I've read this once. When I looked at my Goodreads this morning, I read this the very first time digitally back in May of 2023. So it's been over a year. I loved it, and I stand behind what I said then. This is the delinquent romance I have been looking for. This is the manga that put delinquent romance on my radar, that I fell head over heels for. And I'm just like, Laura, I wish you would have kept reading it, because I've mentioned before, it's the only digital series that I buy the digital volumes as they release, like when they're on sale, I should say. But I've been getting them since I read the manga, but I haven't read past volume 1. And I feel like I have not talked about it on my channel nearly enough. That is going to change, because I know I mentioned a lot about Glass with a Chance of Delinquent. I love that manga. No, I cannot tell you which series is better. I love both of these for different reasons, and they definitely have a strong part of my heart now. But I was reading Love That's Understatement, and then I went back and started rereading it again. because I love reading this so much. There's so much swoon, and I honestly forgot how funny this volume is. Like, Zen is hilarious, but let's focus on Risa. I love the romance. There are many moments that I was totally squealing and swooning, but Risa as a female heroine is amazing. I was very impressed that with her specifically, that when I was reading this story, yes, I'm 100% invested in the romance, but I felt so invested in Risa as a character, as a female lead, not just to be the eye candy in this series, not just to be the girl on the awesome guy's shoulder or arm, I mean, and not that I think that with other series or even with Momo and Ichikura, but I just felt like there was something so compelling about this first volume that was like, hey, I get you're here for the romance, I get that Zen is swoon-worthy, but let's not forget about Risa and her own struggles, because she was so transparent, and I'm with Zen. People may say that she's a robot or she's cold-hearted or she's so smart, doesn't need anybody. No, she does. And I think that's what was so compelling about her overall story just in this first volume, is that we're really seeing her pain and her heartbreak and how she really just wants somebody to depend on. She wants to be needed, like not in a bad way, but just she has been on her own for so long. She doesn't plan for anybody to be there for her. And in comes Zen. In comes Zen, throws her life into chaos in the best of ways, where he's like, hey, if you need something, I will give it. And if there's something I need that you have, please give it to me. And let's return this returning of favors back and forth. And I really love that, because it just feels like Risa here is having her own story. Because sometimes I feel like in shoujo manga that sometimes, and it's not a bad thing, I'm not knocking shoujo, I'm just saying this is an observation of where my brain thought differently, which is very rare for me. I that sounds bad the way I said it, but I saw something different in this manga that I feel like, whoa, I'm taking note of this, and I typically don't do this in other series. I feel like in a mini shoujo manga, not every series, but I feel like in a lot of shoujo, there's a lot of emphasis on the male lead and him having this compelling emotional story of transformation. But I feel like in this moment, Risa is the one that's introduced that way, of like, Risa is the main character, and she's got these struggles, and for it to be set up so early on, where I know as the story goes on, it's going to get more romantic, and I'm going to be here for it. But I'm also going to be here for this investment into Risa's journey of seeing her transform, because Zen's a very carefree person, and I'm sure he'll have character growth along the way, but I'm also here for Risa. I am here to see her realize that she's not alone, that she's got Zen, and she's definitely got her mama, but her mama's working hard right now and can't be there for her, I think, in the way that Risa wants, where she comes home and her mom's there rather than being at work. I mean, granted, her mom's got to pay the bills, and I got the impression, I think it even said that she's a single mom right now raising her. So there's a lot of expectations, and I think at this point that Risa has these burdens of she's always got to be responsible. And when she's not, it's like her world starts being uncertain and her having a lot of even more internal struggle. And so I love that Zen showed up. I love that Zen caused her to realize that she has these things going on, even though it was painful for me as a reader, because I'm like, Risa, girl, don't have this all on you. And the way that her bag has such importance to her, that when she's riding on a motorcycle and she's like, I feel so free. I'm like, yes, I want to see you become more free as this manga goes on. Now let's talk about Zen. Zen is swoon-worthy. He is the perfect delinquent. I love Ichikura, but Zen, the swoon worthiness, the swoon is real in this manga. Zen brings the swoon, and he is hilarious with how easygoing he is and how kind and caring he is, and how he just sometimes rolls with things, because there is a time Risa just falls asleep and she's very blunt to him, and he just takes it in stride. Yeah, he gets offended at times. I love actually one moment where with Risa falling asleep and she chooses to fall asleep on the wall, not his shoulder, and he's like, look, I can forgive that you fell asleep in the middle of my talk, but I can't forgive you choosing the wall over my shoulder. And I just forgot when he has these moments, and they're woven throughout with him and with both of them. Okay, I appreciate manga art. I'm not saying I don't, but I definitely feel like for me, the story is superior. I can deal with art that is not the best, but give me a good story and I'm sold. But this was a time, boy, did I take time to just pause reading, just admire the panels, admire the swoony moments, admire the blushy faces, and just admire and be in the moment where I'm not focusing on reading words. I am just focusing on the pictures. I don't do that often, and maybe that sounds really bad. I mean, I definitely, again, I appreciate the art. I just loved being able to see panels like this with no words and just look at it and just admire it and let my feelings be all up in the moment of loving what's happening, because there were so many moments I loved. And I will say, when it comes to my delinquent manga, I do like seeing people fight. I know that makes it sound really bad, but I love it. I'm like, look, if this is a delinquent romance, I need some kind of fight to happen. I need to see, I mean, not that I want to see like how it was in the beginning where Ren's looking this beat up. I don't want to see him this beat up, okay? But I do like seeing a little bit of action. Give me a little bit of action. And so we definitely had this. Now, I know with Glass with a Chance of Delinquent, there's definitely friends that Ichikura has, but he definitely is more of a lone wolf kind of character. So I really, oh my goodness, look how cute Zen here looks. He looks so precious. But I was going to say, I really, really loved Zen's friends. I loved all of them. I was really excited how they made an appearance, which I'm trying to find right now. I hope that they continue to, because I love when our male lead has some dudes hanging out and being cool, and they're very funny, and I'm excited for them, and there they are right there too. I was excited for that. I really, really loved that. I love seeing that kind of friendship, and I love how with the preview of Volume 2, somebody's like, I'm not going to lose to you. I'm not going to lose Zen to you. And I was like, okay, I'm here for this. I'm 100% here for this kind of trope, arc, growth, whatever you want to call it. It's like, I'm definitely here for it. So I love this manga in every single way. I still strongly stand behind what I said in my Goodreads review a year ago or over a year ago, that this is perfect. There's nothing in this volume I would change. Nothing, not a single thing. I love the art. I love the story. I really love Risa in that character growth, that foundation being laid of like things are going to happen and it's just going to keep getting better and better. And having a very free-going or free-spirited male lead was very entertaining, and how it seems like he just doesn't have any cares on his shoulders, but he does, and how he's there for Risa and how his friends are there. Honestly, I love when Zen is like, Risa's like a cool samurai, because she is so different than Zen, and they have such a great balance of how they act that I really loved it. I loved how he's just attracted to her and her acting like this. I was supposed to be samurai like, but I'm trying to think of what the word is that he used, but she's like, you know, if you're gonna treat your friends like gophers, I don't want to be around you. And he's like, that is the coolest thing. And I'm like, yes. So I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I loved being back in this manga. Like I said, I read it and then I reread it again. I will probably reread it again today because it was just so beautiful, and I mean, I've read Glass with a Chance of Delinquent 6 or 7 times. I've read it so much. I love that series. As my friend Fire says, it altered my brain chemistry. But this was my gateway manga. This was the first one that introduced to me, that made me realize I love delinquent romance. I don't know what future me is going to do, because I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite read of this month. And Glass with a Chance of Delinquent is also one of my favorite reads of the previous month. So when I go to do my bracket next month, when I film my video for that, they're going to be up against one another. And I don't know what I'm going to do, because this series, I feel like, is also going to change my brain chemistry. I just need more volumes to binge. And yes, I have them digitally, but I'm being stubborn. I'm like, Karachik, please give me the next volume, and I keep checking every single day to see, is volume 2 up for pre-order yet when it comes to physicals, because I want more of them. I think if you're looking for a delinquent romance that, yes, it does have humor, but you really want a swoony male lead and you want a female heroine that is standing her ground, is a very strong woman, but you know is going to be growing in vulnerability and realizing that she can be vulnerable with people, that she has people she can depend on and trust. This is a manga you have to read. And if you need that delinquent romance, it's got it. It has got it. But with the swoon, and Zen rides a motorcycle, and it's like, you're just cool in every single way. And this moment right here, oh my gosh, it was so good. I mean, it was just, again, it was perfect in every single way. And I know I'm rambling here, but I loved it, y'all. I loved it so much. And it's one of those series I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it justice, but man, did I love it. I mean, I loved every panel, every page, just everything. And I'm so excited to read more and to own this physically. Like, this is a dream come true. This was my #1 physical manga license I've wanted for so long, and it was more than worth it. And as I've said before, Karachi, I won't ask for anything else, just though please continue to print the series. But like this made my day. I loved it so much. Would highly recommend it. I mean, I would definitely recommend all of these. For sure, but I'm going to be biased and say I recommend this one the most. So if you'd only check out one, please check out this one. Please check out this one. Though, again, these two are very good, and I love them all. And I'm thankful for this chance to gush about these, and I really hope I did them all justice. Especially love That's Understatement, because sometimes I feel like I fall head over heels for these series. Like, it's not down here, but Snow White the Red Hair, like, I know I've done a review of that, but like, I don't talk about it enough, and I'm like, I don't know how to talk about it. Just know that these characters take up my heart, okay? And that I love them so much. So yeah, I loved all three. Highly recommend all of them. But I would love to hear from you, friends. Have you read any of these? Do any of these seem interesting to you that you're like, oh, I would love to check that out? Let me know. Don't hesitate. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!